Hello, Virginia. I'm hoping you all are having a great day wherever you are. I am sitting here today with our Bishop Assistant, Gail Harris, and our new Canon for Discipleship, Ricardo Sheppard. We're having a little conversation about the work that Canon Sheppard has been called to do here in the Diocese of Virginia. We thought this would be a great opportunity for him to introduce himself to you all and to begin this wonderful relationship that I'm sure we're all going to have as we work toward growing in our discipleship, work toward growing in our relationship with Jesus and with each other. So thank you very much for being here.
Okay.
Thank you, Bishop, for being here too. I'm always happy to be sitting in your presence.
With you too. I'm happy to be with you too. I'm on.
So Canon, I can use that term now.
Yeah.
Tell us just a little bit about yourself, where you have come from immediately before this, and what drew you to apply and what you're excited about. Tell us what you want to tell us.
I'm leaving the Diocese of Washington, where I served as a rector at the Episcopal Church of the Atonement, where there's still power, there's still fire, there's still energy behind this thing we call discipleship. Prior to that, I'm a Marine. I always like to let folks know I'm honorably discharged after serving 9.5 years in the Marine Corps. I'm also a child of two parents who met in seminary. So I've been in church since I was in the belly. Didn't stay there. I tried to run as far as I could. But this thing called discipleship, this thing that catches you and pulls you, it's real. It's for some it starts, for me, it started in the belly, but for others, it starts growing up. It's being formed as a child. It's hearing the word again as a teenager, as a Marine in combat, hearing it again. It's again hearing it as an adult and being pulled back into the church. So the excitement for me when I heard about the job description and read it again was the diocese was actually looking to do something where we can tell people about and help them form themselves into what is this discipleship stuff. I know what it is to be a member, but what is it to be a disciple? What does it mean to be one who just doesn't know the book, but know the book? Some things we know, but some things we know that we know that we know because it's past head knowledge, it becomes a hard knowledge. So my excitement is really because this has always been something that's been important to me because I remember learning as a child and then, yeah. And then again, as I got older, hearing again, and, I know that, I remember that, and it began to sink in a little more. And then even as an adult, it began to say, hey, this makes sense. I always talk about that one moment when you can look back and go, oh, that was God. Mm-hmm. That was God. I didn't do that. God showed up for me. And so discipleship to me was something that I get excited about. I want to share. I want to tell people and give them the tools to share with others.
I'll tell you, I don't know that I've shared this with you or not, but we had a number of very good, qualified, strong candidates for this position. And Bishop Harris and I really enjoyed all the interviews we did. And there was a team of people that interviewed folks. And you met with us. When you walked out of the room, both of us picked up pens and dropped them like microphones because of your sense of excitement. And, we have been talking in this diocese for a couple of years now about, the discipleship being one of two primary pillars that guide us, guideposts that move us forward to discipleship and justice in general, racial justice and healing particularly. And your approach is, I think, as you just articulated and talking about what excites you is a broad range of things at all. It's not just one of the problems with my metaphor of the guideposts or the pillars is those are stationary, mm-hmm. But your language is language of motion across all ages. Talk a little bit, if you could, about maybe unpack a little bit more your view of lifelong discipleship. Maybe give us some examples of how you engage that, or how you hope to engage with that in the Diocese of Virginia.
I've been blessed to have different opportunities. I've worked as a chaplain for Bishop Walker's School for Boys. Here I had an opportunity to form these so open and willing young children in different ways, because I recognize everyone learns differently. For one group, they love the stories. For another group, they wanted to know, okay, why does this say this? What does this mean? And so it was the opportunity to find a different range to talk to the children. I've done community building stuff in Southeast DC, where I'm on the corner talking to young men who are out there, and I'm not getting into what they're doing, but they're listening. Why? Because I've gone back and forth, and they knew me. They saw me, hey, Rev. And I'm like, come here, listen. Your mama know you out here? I went laughing, we joke. I'm like, when's the last time you been to church? Hey, Rev, I don't do that church stuff. I'm like, when's the last time you prayed? And I get responses like, man, I was praying the other day. I was out here. I'm like, do you know God hears you? Do you realize that the person you're praying to is more than just some mystical figure, that somebody you can actually talk to on a regular basis? And then, I remember I love to do, why do we do what we do? That is something I love doing in the church because as a woman told me, I've been confirmed about 60 years now. I can't remember all that stuff. Great, let's go over it again. And for her, it was like, oh, wow. They didn't tell me like that. When I didn't realize that we can do this. And it's oftentimes my seniors who are the ones who are coming and saying, thank you. I've forgotten about that. Thank you. You put it in the words that make sense. I had a young lady, she was a little older than I was, say to me, that evangelist stuff, that talking to people ain't for me. I said, oh, do you have any grandchildren? She said, sure. And she pulled out her phone and showed me her grandchildren, the excitement. I said, can you imagine if you ever got that excited about Jesus?
Right.
She's like, oh, I said, the same thing. But you know your grandchildren. Take the time to get to know Jesus. And to me, so for me, it's broad. Everyone's different. Everyone learns different, receives different. But it's like, why not? It's taking the time to sit with one person, sit with 3 people, show up. I've learned that the ministry of presence is the greatest ministry that I will ever have in this role. It's just showing up and letting folks know, God loves you in the midst of it.
What you've said several times really resonates with me. The word disciple means student, to learn. And we tend to think of disciples as those 12 guys who ran around with Jesus.
12 guys and a bunch of women.
They don't need them.
I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. So they needed direction.
That's right. That somebody would have messed it all up since I was that. It's just sort of it.
There were 3 wise men with probably 6 wise women telling them. But that's what we tend to think of, those big name saints like Peter and what have you. But what you've been saying is it is to know Jesus. But the other side of discipleship, I think it's 2 things. It's not just to know Jesus, but as we said earlier in the meeting, to make Jesus known. What is it that you think you can help us impart that we not only get to know Jesus deeper, because I think that's the most important thing about discipleship, is to go deeper, but how do we make Jesus known?
I ask the question to folks, do you know that? Tell me one time that you know it wasn't you.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me that one time in your life when you are sure that I don't know how, who, where, but God came through for me. I said, can you imagine sharing that with someone? I said, oftentimes we think about, I got to know scripture and verse, and no, it's your story. The greatest piece that we have is how did God touch you? People can argue anything down, but they can't tell me that God isn't in my life.
And that's what's so important, telling the story. Jesus did not browbeat us all the time when we read the gospel. That to make a point, he told a story. And if you say the Good Samaritan, people understand what that means. The prodigal son, he told stories to make points, both ethical, moral, religious, spiritual points of how we interact with one another. And so part of your position is to help us tell our stories, not get them correct, not act like we're Shakespeare, but to be who we are, talking about whose we are.
Can you imagine a group of people just sitting around and sharing about how God has touched them?
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine just 2 or 3 sitting around and talking about, my grandchild was in the hospital, we were praying, and he's healed. Look at him now, sharing those stories, and then taking those stories and sharing them.
Yeah, right.
And someone say, oh, wow, I went through the same thing. And because sometimes we feel that we're all by ourselves. That what we're going through, we're the only ones going through it. But it's to have that opportunity to say, I know where you've been. And let me tell you about this Jesus who helped me get through it. So let me come beside you and help you get through it. So discipleship is greater than just for yourself. Discipleship is also the opportunity to share your story and help someone else find Jesus. Because if God didn't make your cup, run it over so you can get a bigger cup, put it underneath. Okay, that's not why your cup run it over. It run it over so somebody else could bring their cup and be blessed. So discipleship to me is getting it and being so full of it that you have to share it. And when you recognize you can't help it, it becomes an excitement. The same way about talking about your grandchildren. You get excited about this Jesus that you've met.
So earlier, Bishop Harris referenced a prayer that we prayed this morning. It's in the prayer book. It's the beginning of a list of Thanksgiving prayers. And there's a line in there about knowing Jesus and making him known. And we talked a little bit about that already. Maybe go a little deeper in how you approach that. What's it really mean to you to know Jesus and make him known?
And not just about Jesus, because that's part of what we know. People know about Jesus. How do we know Jesus?
I always laugh at that because I had a head knowledge. I've been in the church since I was in the belly. I knew all about it. I knew when to stand up, when to sit down, I knew all the ritualistic parts about church and the Bible. I knew the stories, but I didn't have a relationship. And that is the piece that I think separates us. I was asked by one of my parishioners, so what are you going to be doing over there as the Canon for Discipleship? And I said, well, to put it simple, I'm going to be helping folks who know about Jesus to know Jesus. To get it from a head knowledge to a heart knowledge. And the way that is done often is, I use the analogy, for those of us who've been married or are married, try being in a relationship and not talking to the person you're in a relationship with. See how well that works for you. It doesn't work because you don't. But when relationship with God, we need to talk to him daily. I personally talk to him more than twice, 3, 4, 5. Depends on the situation. I talk to him all day long. And guess what? He talks back. Because it's a relationship.
When you listen.
You mentioned earlier today when we were talking about this 5-minute challenge.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
I truly believe that oftentimes we get our Sunday fix and think that's enough. And what I mean by a Sunday fix, we go to church on Sunday and we enjoy our service. We enjoy what we do. We fellowship and we leave and we think I'm good for the week. But that's like, again, talking to your wife or your husband once a week and thinking that's enough. I challenge my folks at the last 2 churches to 5-minute challenge. Spend 5 minutes each day with Jesus. Daily bread, forward day by day, something where you read, where you read a scripture and read a little, and then spend some time in prayer. I've learned to write down my prayer list because the older I get, the better my memory gets. So I write it down. And in those moments, I begin to pray for the folks who I've written on my list. But it doesn't take 5 minutes. And I always guarantee folks, if you do that 5 minutes religiously, you'll discover after 6 months that your 5 minutes is way not enough. That as you spend time to talk to God.
Exercising a muscle, the spiritual.
Yes, and it grows. And the excitement becomes when you discover God's talking back to you. You discover that you're learning something. Someone will say something to you and you will recite something or mention something that you read and you'll surprise yourself. Where'd that come from? Because you're taking it in more than just on a Sunday morning. So the challenge works. I challenge folks 5 minutes. And I can honestly say for those who have diligently done it, 5 minutes is never enough. It's exciting. It's exciting.
There's 5-minute home devotions that are in our prayer book. I mean, I know most of our prayer books are journey between page 355 and 360.
Yes.
In the first part of our prayer book, there are, if you want some kind of form, there's one for morning, noonday, and evening. And they are 5 minutes. They are 5 minutes long. It's all there. Plus, you get to put in your own individual needs, concerns, issues or thanksgiving to God. And I think we have to also say part of discipleship is recognizing it's not us, but giving thanks to God. And I don't know if we always come forward in an attitude of gratitude.
Yes.
It's about being the church wherever you are and not just being at church. It's not.
See, when you say the church, we constantly equate the church with the building.
That's right.
And we lose sight of the fact that how if the building, God forbid, breaks down, burns down, or whatever, the church continues because we are the church. Each individual is a church. And I get in trouble because I always say you take the church with you where you go. And folks are like, no. I'm like, yeah, you take the church with you. So what you're sharing, what you're saying, what are you telling? How are you living? It's all part of being the church. So if we say we're following Christ, if we say that I am a disciple of Christ and I take Christ with me everywhere I go, there's some days when we look back over our shoulder and should get nervous. But there's some days where there's some joy because you're like, can I tell you something? Can I tell you it's going to be okay? It might not be easy, but I know someone who will help you walk along the way. And that to me is the joy, is the excitement, is the opportunity to meet with ones and twos and 40s and 50s and 80s and 100s and just be able to say, hey, do you know this guy named Jesus? I met him once and my life has never been the same. How about you?
Let me shift just a little bit. Maybe it's not a shift. I don't know. But I have said often over the last couple of years as we have moved toward the start of this work that you're going to be about, that I do not want any of us to create the official Diocese of Virginia Sunday school program.
Right.
That's not what we're about. We're not about creating this one model that everyone's going to follow, that we just give it and we say we're done, we've ticked the box, and that we just provide help to walk that path. So how are you going to approach this ministry? What are your goals? What are your methodologies? What do you think?
The first piece I'm thinking is just showing up. Beginning to build relationships, to let people know who I am, to catch some of my energy because it's just me. But also ones and twos and threes. I said early on that we learn differently and we grasp differently. So I can't say Northern Virginia and Southern. No. As I go into a space, begin to learn them, begin to build a relationship, begin to figure out, because I am sure that this is already going on in the diocese. I'm just going to find where it's happening and help light the fire so it can happen a little greater. And it may be happening this way in Sunday school. It may be happening this way in adult education. It may be happening with the senior group who meet for tea once a week. It's happening in different places. So for me, it's to just get around and find that space and be present and help them to realize what you're already doing it. This build upon what you're already doing. Because oftentimes we use different words for the same thing. We talk about formation. Yes, how are we forming disciples? But we don't normally say forming disciples. We just say formation. So I believe it's already going on. It's being able to, and I know it's a large diocese, but I have, big hands, big feet, have car will travel. And I plan on getting there. And hoping, and telling folks, invite me. If I haven't invite me. My job is to be present, to work with you. And if you're concerned, and I know there are going to be some folks, well, we don't need that. Well, we all need Jesus. We all do. And you already got him. It's just, let me help you show you how you can tell others and allow it to grow.
And to think outside of the box, sometimes you have to get out of the box so that you can grow. And I get that from you, that sort of that passion of, well, that's fine, it's working now, but have you thought about this over here? Or sharing between churches. Let's build in those relationships. As you said earlier, this church here in the valley may learn something to those on shore, but the shore might also share something with the valley in a way that complements what they're doing. I mean, it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street.
I know we communicate, but sometimes on the lowest levels we don't. We might have something that is setting fire in our little community, and we kind of hold on to it because it's working, right? We don't want to mess it up. But can you imagine if a community found out, listen, all we do is we offer breakfast on Sunday morning, and they come. Oh, that's it. That's it. That's it. And when they come, we're excited to see them, and we let them know we're happy they're here, and we love on them, and we love on them, and we love on them. And they tell their friends, and their friends come, and we love on them, and it grows. But oftentimes we've gotten accustomed to doing it this way. Whether it works or not, we do it this way.
Always this.
But to imagine just trying one time to do something outside of that gaze, trying one time to say, okay, on this day, we are not going to sit inside the church. We are actually going to go outside the church and do the same service. Outside? Yes. Your neighbors don't actually know what's going on inside, and many of them won't come in. But if you take it outside, they can open the brace and say, what are they doing over there?
Right.
Oh.
And finding Jesus in those different places. I had a group in a parish, they called themselves a 20-something, 30-something group, and they decided they would go to all kinds of different movies. It could be drama, it could be action-oriented, and they would go and then afterward have pizza and talk about the theology or where they saw Christian witness or wasn't there. And it got so that my older members got a little jealous, so they had to invite the rest of us on occasion to go. But again, who would think about going to a movie and sit around and talking about ethics or morals or is the Christian? Where do we see Christ? I mean, sort of that C.S. Lewis moment about Islam when people say, "Oh, he represents Jesus, doesn't he? The lion."
We don't have all the answers to all the problems. The reality is, when we're talking about working ecumenically, oftentimes within our communities, there are churches who are doing well and doing this well, but they're not Episcopalian. No, we're followers of Christ, and we can learn and grow from each other. I've watched, and as a part of an ecumenical movement within Southeast D.C., where we've come together on a monthly basis and not sit there and prawn and let our feathers go up, but sit there and say, how can we serve this community greater? How can we help? Because I discovered the person who's hungry on the street doesn't care who you are. Just feed me. And so somebody kind of
did. Jesus didn't ask them about their pedigree or where they lived or their zip code or what, model of car they were driving or donkey, I guess, at that point. But isn't that what's required of us?
They will know we are Christians not by our committees, not by our liturgy, not by whether we stand, sit, or kneel. They will know we are Christians by our love.
Mm-hmm.
So that love is what, to me, it's what discipleship, once we start to grow, and it's love. I don't want to beat a sounding horse. I know we've heard it for the last couple of years, but it's true. If the love of Christ, it's in us, but we want to tell somebody. We want to share it. But sometimes we have it, we just can't, but then no, I'm quiet, I don't share it. So that hug you gave me this morning? That was all about the love of Jesus Christ. That hug, when you held on a couple seconds longer and the tears started flowing, that's discipleship.
St. Francis said, preach the gospel always, using times.
Use words if you must.
Yes. And it is. It's the hug, it's the handshake. It's just listening sometimes is what discipleship is called to in you to do. Yeah.
Everywhere it's going to be different. Mm-hmm. But it's recognizing that what we are doing is discipleship. And to have, and Bishop, I agree that we don't need a set, Sunday school curriculum, but we need a set love.
Mm.
Right? We need a set love. That the purpose at the end of the day is to share the love of Christ with one another.
So Canon, I know you have a big job ahead of you, and we're both convinced that you're going to achieve more than what you even think you can at this point. But I know that's going to happen. As you go about this work, as you engage this work, if you had an opportunity to sit down with the 65,000 some odd Episcopals in the Diocese of Virginia right now and ask them one question, as you get to know them, what would that be?
Big question would simply be, when's the last time you saw Jesus? When's the last time you were in a space where you looked around and you saw Jesus, whether in his creation, whether in each other. Where were you the last time you saw Jesus? And I would love to hear from you. I would love folks to tell me, I was here, or I was doing this, or I was sitting on a mountain, or I was driving down the street, or I stopped to help someone. And I would love to hear those stories, because it begins a conversation and opens people up to begin to share a little bit about, and also gets us to start looking.
Well, Diocese of Virginia, I hope that you get a little sense of what we're about here. You get a little sense of what Canon Sheppard is about in his ministry. I want you all to think about that question that he's posed for us. When was the last time we saw Jesus? And we can start thinking about how we will share that knowledge with others as we deepen our discipleship, as we talk about the love that we have for Christ and that we know that Christ Jesus has for us. And always, always remember that we are called to love Jesus, to embody justice, and be disciples, because we are the Diocese of Virginia.